He lost her without warning. She lost him in a single moment. Miles apart, with no way to reach each other, their story should have ended there, but it didn't. He came back searching. She learned to live without him. And just when hope was fading, fate stepped in. But finding each other again isn't the end. It's the beginning of a harder choice. Will they hold on this time, or lose everything all over again? Seoul received Kim Min-jae the way it always did. Quiet, precise, and perfectly arranged. Nothing had changed. The streets moved in order. The buildings stood in clean lines. Conversations remained brief and purposeful. His office welcomed him back with the same polished silence, the same predictable rhythm that once gave him comfort. Everything was exactly where it should be. And yet something was wrong. He noticed it in the pauses. Moments where his thoughts should have been focused, calculated, moving ahead of everyone else, but instead they drifted, slipping, without permission, back to somewhere louder, warmer, unstructured, back to her. A restaurant filled with noise. A voice that didn't wait its turn. Laughter that made no sense to him, yet somehow made everything feel lighter. Kim sat at his desk one evening, staring at a report he had already read twice. The numbers were clear. The solution was obvious. But his mind refused to settle. It was temporary, he said quietly to himself. An experience. An interruption. Nothing more. His fingers tapped lightly against the desk. An emotional anomaly. The words sounded correct, but they didn't feel true. That night, he picked up his phone. He stared at her number for a long moment before pressing call. The line rang. Once. Twice. His chest tightened slightly. For a man who always knew what to say before speaking, his mind went completely blank. No structure. No opening line. No carefully measured words. Just silence and the sound of it connecting. Panic, unfamiliar and sudden, crept in. And before anyone could answer, he ended the call. Kim exhaled slowly, staring at the screen as if it might explain what had just happened. That was unnecessary, he muttered under his breath. He set the phone down, picked it up again. This time he was ready. At least he thought he was. He pressed call. Nothing. The line didn't ring. It didn't connect. It simply failed. A small crease formed between his brows. He tried again, and again. Each attempt ended the same way. Silent, abrupt, incomplete. His thumb hovered over the screen as a strange unease began to settle in. That is not possible, he murmured. He checked the number carefully. Every digit. No mistake. He tried sending a message. No reply. The indicator remained still, unmoving, as if the message had nowhere to go. Kim leaned back slightly, his mind beginning to move faster now. Not calmly, but restlessly. Network issue. That was the first explanation. Temporary. Logical. He waited. Tried again later. Still nothing. Hours turned into days. Days stretched into something longer. The silence remained. And slowly, logic began to fracture. Did she give him the wrong number? No. He remembered clearly. She typed it herself. Did she change her mind? The thought lingered longer than he expected. Did he misunderstand everything? Kim stood by his window one evening, staring out at the city lights below, his reflection faintly visible against the glass. No, he said quietly. Anita did not feel like someone who would disappear without a reason. There had been nothing uncertain in her voice, nothing hesitant in the way she spoke to him, laughed with him, looked at him. What they shared, it was real. His grip on the phone tightened slightly. Then what happened? He whispered. For the first time in a long while, there was no answer. Weeks passed. Externally, nothing changed. Kim continued his work, attended meetings, delivered results with the same precision that had always defined him. But internally, something remained unresolved. It was there in the quiet moments, in the pauses between conversations, in the way his attention drifted without warning. The silence had not faded. If anything, it had grown heavier. Then his leave was approved. 1 week, a break he would normally spend resting, maintaining routine, staying within the boundaries of what was expected. This time it felt different. He sat alone, staring at the notification on his screen. 1 week. His mind began to calculate, almost out of habit, distance, time, probability of success. The outcome was unclear, uncertain, illogical. There was no guarantee he would find her. No structure, no plan that ensured results. Just a possibility. Kim exhaled slowly, closing his eyes for a brief moment. For once, he did not analyze it further. He reached for his laptop, booked a flight, and just like that, the decision was made. Not for business, not for obligation, but for something he did not fully understand. As he leaned back in his chair, the faintest shift passed through him. Not relief, not certainty, but something close to it. For the one girl, he said quietly, almost to himself, who understood me. And for the first time, he wasn't sure what he would find when he got there. But he knew one thing. He had to try. Nigeria did not greet him the same way this time. The noise was still there, the constant hum of voices, engines, movement, but it no longer felt like something distant, something to endure. It pressed closer now, personal, almost urgent, because this time, Kim Min-jae was not just passing through. He was searching. The restaurant came into view sooner than he expected. For a brief moment, something inside him tightened. Anticipation, or perhaps something dangerously close to hope. He stepped in, his eyes scanning the room almost immediately, instinctively. But nothing met him. No familiar voice. No bright energy cutting through the noise. No Anita. The place looked the same, yet it felt different. The warmth he remembered was gone, replaced by something more ordinary, more indifferent. A few heads turned toward him, but the curiosity was shallow this time, fleeting. He stood there for a second longer than necessary. Then he approached the counter. "I'm looking for someone," he said, his tone calm but direct. "Her name is Anita. She works here." The girl behind the counter hesitated. Just slightly. It was enough for him to notice. "She doesn't work here anymore," she said finally, her voice quick, almost rehearsed. Kim's expression didn't change, but his gaze sharpened. "Where did she go?" "I don't know." The answer came too fast. Another staff member stepped in, shrugging carelessly. "She stopped coming. That's all. Stop coming." The words echoed in his mind, incomplete and unsatisfying. "That is not sufficient information," he said, his voice quieter now, but firmer. The first girl shifted slightly, clearly uncomfortable. "That's all we know, sir." Kim held their gaze for a moment longer, searching for something, hesitation, guilt, anything that might lead somewhere. But whatever truth existed, they weren't offering it. Behind him, a soft voice spoke. "You came back." He turned. One of the waitresses, someone who had laughed that night, stood there, her expression different now. Curious, interested in a way that felt deliberate. "I didn't think you would," she continued, stepping a little closer. "Looking for her?" "Yes." She smiled faintly, tilting her head. "You're serious about this?" "I am." Something in his tone must have answered more than his words, because her smile shifted, less playful, more calculating. "Well," she said, leaning slightly against the counter, "she's not the only one here, you know." Kim didn't respond. She moved closer. "You can stay. I'll take care of you this time." There was a pause. Then simply, "No." The word was calm, flat, final. For a second, she didn't react. Then her expression hardened. The softness replaced instantly with irritation. So it's like that?" she scoffed, straightening up. "You think you're special because you came from outside?" Kim had already turned away, but her voice followed him. "Running around for one girl like a fool," she added sharply. "You think she's waiting for you? She's probably moved on." He didn't stop, didn't respond, didn't even look back. But the words lingered longer than they should have. Outside, the city swallowed him again. This time, he didn't hesitate. He stepped into the streets. Not as an observer, not as someone trying to remain unnoticed, but as someone with a purpose, a direction, even if it wasn't clearly defined. He approached people, strangers. "Excuse me," he said, his accent heavy, his words careful. "I'm looking for a woman. Anita. She worked in a restaurant near here." Some looked at him with confusion, others with amusement. "Anita," one man repeated, laughing lightly. "Which Anita?" "There are many." Kim said. That was not something he had considered. "She is," he hesitated, searching for the right description. She talks a lot. The man laughed louder. That one no help you, my brother. Another waved him off. Go, go. I don't know. He moved on. Again and again. Each attempt was slightly different, but the outcome remained the same. Misunderstood words, vague responses, curious stares that lingered a little too long. What is this one doing? Someone whispered nearby. 4-man day, find woman for street, another added, shaking his head. Kim heard them. He understood enough. But for once, it didn't matter. His English wasn't perfect. His explanations weren't clear. His presence drew attention he would have once avoided at all costs. Now, he ignored all of it. He walked through crowded markets where voices overlapped endlessly, through narrow streets where movement never seemed to stop, past roadside stalls where people called out to him, some offering help, others simply curious. At one point, a woman pointed in a direction confidently. I think I know her. Go that way. He followed, only to find nothing. No Anita, just another dead end. He stood there for a moment, breathing slightly heavier than before. Frustration began to settle in. Not loud, not explosive, but steady, growing. In his world, effort led to results. Systems produced outcomes. Here, there was nothing to hold on to. And yet, he didn't stop. He adjusted, observed differently, moved more carefully, less like someone searching blindly, more like someone tracking something invisible. Quiet, focused, relentless. As the sun dipped lower, casting longer shadows across the streets, Kim slowed his steps slightly, his gaze still scanning every face that passed. For the first time in his life, he wasn't concerned about how he appeared, not about being strange, not about being misunderstood. None of it mattered anymore, because this wasn't about being understood. It was about not losing the one person who already had. Anita sat at the edge of her bed, her room quiet in a way that felt unfamiliar, almost unsettling. Usually, even when she was alone, there was noise, music, humming, something to keep her thoughts from settling too deeply. But today, she let the silence stay. Maybe because she didn't have the energy to fight it. Her fingers twisted loosely in the fabric of her dress as her mind drifted back, not to just one moment, but to the slow unraveling of everything. It didn't happen all at once. She remembered waking up with a strange mix of excitement and fear sitting heavily in her chest. The excitement came first, the memory of the day before, the laughter, the way everything had felt easy with him. It lingered like something warm. But then reality crept in. Work. Her eyes had widened slightly as she sat up. I didn't go, she whispered to herself, suddenly remembering. She had told her colleagues to cover for her, said it casually, confidently even, like it wasn't a big deal. They'll handle it, she had told herself, trying to stay calm. Still, something about it didn't sit right. As she got ready, she rehearsed what she would say. A joke first, maybe, then an apology. She could talk her way out of things, she always did. But the moment she stepped into the restaurant, she knew something was wrong. The atmosphere had changed. The usual greetings didn't come. No one called her name. No plafeltising. Just looks. Sharp ones. Her smile faltered slightly, but she forced it back. Good morning, she said a little too brightly. No one responded. Her chest tightened. Anita. The manager's voice cut through the silence. She turned quickly. Sir, I was just about to. You're no longer needed here. The words were calm. Too calm. She blinked, a small laugh slipping out instinctively. Sir, I just missed one day. I even told them to cover for me. She gestured lightly toward her colleagues. None of them looked up. Not one. The smile on her face slowly faded. You left your shift without permission, the manager continued. Anita's eyes flickered between them again, disbelief settling in. But I told you people, she said under her breath, her voice barely holding. Silence. That was all she got. Something inside her sank. I'm sorry, she said quickly, stepping forward. It won't happen again. We've made our decision. Final. She stood there, her thoughts scrambling for something, anything to fix it, but there was nothing to hold on to. I understand, she said quietly, though her voice betrayed her. And just like that, it was over. Days passed, but the weight didn't lift. No calls from Kim. No messages yet. He's busy, she said. He'll call later. She tried to move on, telling herself it was just a job, that she would find another one, that she would be fine. But her thoughts kept returning to him. Kimu, the only part of that day that still felt right. That afternoon, as she walked through the crowded street, her lips curved into a small, absent smile. Strange man, she murmured softly. Her hand slipped in her bag, reaching for her phone. She just wanted to see his number again, to remind herself that something good had actually happened in the middle of everything going wrong. Her fingers brushed against something, then nothing. She frowned, checked again, faster this time. Her steps slowed. No, wait. She stopped completely, pulling her bag open properly now. Her heart began to race as she searched more urgently. It wasn't there. Her breathing shifted. She checked her pockets. Nothing. Then the memory hit her. A brief moment. Someone brushing past her. Too close. Too quick. Her body went still. No. She turned sharply, her eyes scanning the crowd, her surroundings suddenly unfamiliar. Excuse me, my phone. Did you see? She asked someone, her voice unsteady. The person barely looked at her. No. Another shake of the head. Another dismissal. Panic rose quickly now. She retraced her steps. Her movements rushed, almost desperate. Her eyes searched everything. The ground, the faces around her, every passing second tightening the pressure in her chest. But deep down, she already knew. It was gone. Her phone. Gone. And with it, him. The realization hit harder than she expected. A broken sound escaped her, sharp and raw, as tears filled her eyes almost instantly. No, not this, she whispered, shaking her head as if she could undo it. Losing her job had hurt. But this felt cruel. Because she knew why she lost the job. Because of him. Because she chose that one day. And now, she had nothing to show for it. Her voice cracked as she let out a soft, helpless cry, her shoulders shaking as the weight of it all came crashing down at once. I lost everything, she whispered. Back in her small apartment, the reality settled in even deeper. The silence, the empty space, the unpaid bills sitting untouched. Her stomach growled faintly, but she ignored it. She curled slightly on the bed, staring at nothing, her thoughts looping endlessly between regret and longing. If she hadn't gone out that day, if only she had stayed. But she didn't. She closed her eyes, letting the tears fall quietly, as if even her pain didn't want to be noticed. And somehow, she still couldn't bring herself to regret him completely. Maybe that was what hurt the most. Time, as always, kept moving, unbothered, unforgiving, carrying everything forward, whether hearts were ready or not. But for Kim and Anita, something had been left behind, suspended somewhere between memory and longing. For Kim, the days began to lose their edges. Nigeria no longer felt as unfamiliar. The noise settled into something recognizable, the chaos into a rhythm he could follow. He learned to move with it, watching, listening, adapting, but none of it brought him closer to her. Each morning, he stepped out with quiet resolve, already planning where to look next. Streets, restaurants, crowded corners where someone like Anita, bright, impossible to ignore, should have left a mark. But every lead faded into nothing. She used to come around here. I might have seen her. Try the next street. Pieces of something that never came together. Still, he kept going. The urgency had disappeared from his face, replaced by something steadier, quieter, almost automatic. But beneath it all was something stronger than reason, because giving up was never an option. Somewhere else in the same city, Anita was learning how to live again. Not the way she once did. Free, reckless, untouched. This time it was different. Slower. Careful. The roadside stall was small, barely more than a setup by the edge of a busy road, where the smell of food clung to the air along with dust and passing traffic. It wasn't the life she once imagined, but it was something, and right now, something was enough. Anita, hurry, the customer is waiting, the woman beside her called. I'm coming, she answered quickly, her hands already in motion. There was a rhythm to it now, preparing meals, passing plates, trading light jokes with customers who came not just for the food, but for her. "Why you dey always smile like this?" one man asked, shaking his head. She let out a soft laugh. "If I no smile, you go still buy my food?" "I go buy, but e no go sweet again." "Then make I keep smiling," she replied, handing him his plate. And just like that, the moment slipped away. From the outside, she looked fine, and in some ways she truly was. Her laughter had returned, not as loud, not as careless, but real. Her energy came back in fragments, shaped by everything she had been through. She was stronger now, but strength didn't mean forgetting. Because at night, everything slowed down. The noise faded, the world went quiet, and she was left alone with her thoughts. That was when he returned, not in person, but in memory. She would lie on her bed, staring at the ceiling like before, her fingers tracing absent patterns against the sheet. Did he call? She wondered. The thought came more often than she liked. Did he try? That one always made her chest tighten. Because if he did, she would never know. She pressed her lips together, turning to her side, pulling the pillow closer. Or maybe, she whispered, her voice barely there, it didn't mean that much to him. That thought hurt. Not all at once, but slowly, like something sinking deeper the more she tried to push it away. Still, she never let herself stay there for long. Because hope, even fragile, was something she wasn't ready to lose. And somewhere in the same city, Kim walked right past her, without knowing, without seeing, without realizing just how close he had been. It happened on an ordinary afternoon. The sun stood high, the streets alive as always. Kim moved through it with quiet focus, his eyes scanning faces, signs, patterns, anything that might lead him forward. He passed by a roadside stall, close enough to hear laughter, close enough to catch the faint scent of food. But his attention was elsewhere. A man had just pointed him in another direction. "I think I saw someone like that near the junction," the man had said. That was enough. Kim didn't stop. He walked past, just minutes too early. Behind him, Anita wiped her hands quickly, stepping forward with a plate. "Sir, your food." Her voice trailed off slightly as the customer took it from her. "Thank you," the man said. She nodded absently, her gaze drifting for a brief moment toward the road. Something fell off, like a thought she almost remembered, but it passed quickly. She shook her head lightly and turned back to her work. Days continued like that. Close, too close. Moments where their paths brushed against each other without ever connecting. A street he left minutes before she arrived. A place she mentioned that he visited hours later. Invisible threads pulling them through the same spaces, just never at the same time. Fate was moving, slowly, carefully, but not fast enough. And in the space between almost and not quite, two hearts remained suspended. One searching, one healing, both waiting, without knowing how close they already were. That day, Kim Min-jae was no longer searching. Not in the way he had been. The sharp focus had dulled into something quieter, heavier. Days of unanswered questions, wrong directions, and empty leads had worn him down in a way he hadn't anticipated. Not physically, but mentally, emotionally. For the first time since he arrived, he allowed himself to slow down. He walked without urgency, his steps blending into the rhythm of the street. The noise around him felt distant again, not overwhelming, just there. People passed. Voices overlapped. Life continued as if nothing had been missing. Maybe nothing was. He exhaled softly, his gaze lowering for a brief moment. This may be the end, he thought. Not with bitterness. Not even with regret. Just acceptance. And then, he heard it. A laugh. Bright. Unfiltered. Familiar in a way that didn't need explanation. His body reacted before his mind could process it. He stopped. Completely. The sound cut through everything. The noise, the movement, the distance. It didn't belong to the street. It didn't belong to the moment. It belonged to her. Kim turned. Slowly at first, then faster. And there she was. Anita, standing just a few steps away, her head slightly tilted back as she laughed at something a customer had said. The sunlight caught her face, her expression alive in the same way he remembered. Effortless, genuine. For a second, Nothing moved. Not the crowd. Not the air. Not even him. It felt unreal, like something his mind had recreated too many times in quiet moments, now standing in front of him in a form he didn't quite trust. Then, she saw him. The laughter faded from her lips instantly, replaced by something else, something deeper, something just as immediate. Her eyes widened slightly. "Kim," she whispered, barely audible even to herself. He didn't respond, not because he didn't hear her, but because he was still trying to confirm that she was real, that this wasn't another illusion his mind had created to fill the silence. For a moment longer, neither of them moved. Two people standing in the middle of a living, breathing city, and yet completely still. Then, slowly, carefully, they stepped toward each other. One step, then another, as if moving too quickly might break whatever fragile reality had formed between them. When they were close enough to see every detail clearly, close enough to feel the presence they had both missed, everything hit at once. Relief, confusion, disbelief. "You," Anita began. "I called you," Kim said. They paused. "I tried. I lost my phone." Silence. Then it clicked. Missed calls. Doubt. Gone. Just bad timing. "That explains," Kim exhaled. "I thought you forgot," Anita said. "I didn't." She searched his face, then softened. "I know." The tension broke. She laughed. He followed. "Why?" "I don't know. Everything." He understood. The frustration melted away. "You came back," she said. "Yes." "You were looking for me?" "I still am. I just found you." She smiled. No more confusion. Just two people, separated by timing, now back together. Not by accident, not by luck alone, but because neither of them had let go. And standing there, in the middle of everything that once kept them apart, one quiet truth settled between them. They had found each other again, and this time, they weren't going to lose it. This time, they didn't rush. The urgency that once defined them, the excitement, the intensity, the way everything had come together too quickly, was gone. In its place was something quieter, heavier, but steadier, something real. They walked side by side, not chasing time, not trying to fit everything into a single day. There was no pressure now, no countdown hanging over them, just presence. And for once, that was enough. They found a quiet place to sit later that evening, away from the noise again, but it felt different from before. Not like an escape, but like a space they chose together. "I almost stopped looking," Kim admitted after a while, his voice calm, but honest in a way it hadn't been before. Anita turned slightly toward him. "You did." He nodded. There was no clear path, no certainty. It did not make sense to continue. "And yet you did," she said softly. He looked at her. "Yes." She held his gaze for a moment, then looked down at her hands. "I thought you didn't call," she admitted. "At first, I was angry. Then, I just thought maybe I didn't matter that much." "You mattered," he said immediately. There was no hesitation this time. No calculation. Just truth. She nodded slowly, taking that in. "When I lost my phone," she continued, her voice dropping slightly, "it felt like I lost you too. Like everything just disappeared at once." Kim's expression shifted, something deeper settling behind his eyes. "I did not consider that possibility," he said quietly. "I assumed other explanations." She smiled faintly. "Of course you did. You think too much. And you trust too easily," he replied. She didn't argue. Because this time, they weren't avoiding the truth. They sat with it. The distance between their worlds. The difference in how they lived. The uncertainty of what came next. None of it disappeared just because they had found each other again. "This won't be easy," Anita said after a while. "I know. You'll go back." "Yes." "And I'm here." "Yes." Silence followed, but not the kind that pulled them apart. The kind that made things clearer. Anita exhaled softly. "Before, it felt like something that just happened to us." Kim nodded slightly. "It was not controlled." She smiled. "You didn't like that." "No," he admitted. Then, after a brief pause, "But I understand it now." She looked at him, curious. "Understand what?" "That not everything needs to be controlled to be meaningful." Her expression softened. "And you?" he asked. She shrugged lightly. "I still don't have everything figured out. But I don't want to lose something good just because I'm scared. He studied her for a moment, and in that moment, something unspoken passed between them. Not excitement, not impulse, a decision. We try, she said simply. We try, he repeated. That evening, he took her somewhere familiar. Too familiar. When they stopped in front of the restaurant, Anita blinked, her steps slowing. Wait, this place? Yes. She looked at him, half surprised, half amused. Out of all the places you could take me. It is significant, he said. She let out a small laugh. You really think differently. Is that a problem? She shook her head. No, I like it. They stepped inside. For a brief second, everything paused. The space hadn't changed much. The same arrangement, the same lighting, the same atmosphere. But the energy shifted the moment she walked in. Eyes turned. Recognition spread. Her former colleagues froze where they stood, their expressions caught somewhere between shock and disbelief. The same people who had avoided her gaze now couldn't look away. But Anita didn't hesitate. She walked in confidently, dressed elegantly, her presence calm but undeniable. There was no trace of the uncertainty she once carried out of that place. Kim followed beside her, composed as always. A staff member approached them cautiously. Welcome. Anita smiled. Table for two. Her voice was steady, unbothered. They were seated, menus placed before them. And just like that, the roles had shifted. She leaned slightly toward Kim, her smile returning fully now. So, what are we ordering? Something less intense than last time, he replied. She laughed, freely brightly. The sound filled the space. And this time, no one laughed at her. They watched, silently, uncomfortably, because they understood now. What they had dismissed, what they had mocked, what they had helped her lose, and what she had somehow found again. Anita spoke animatedly, teasing him, laughing as she placed orders, completely at ease. Kim listened, responding in his usual calm way. But there was something softer in him now, something present. At one point, she reached across the table and hugged him lightly, unable to contain her laughter. The room shifted again. One of the waitresses, the same one who had once mocked him, looked away sharply, her expression tightening. She tried to hold it together, but it didn't last. Moments later, she turned and walked off, quietly, unable to watch. The rest remained, because they had no choice. Their new manager didn't care about old stories, old decisions, or past mistakes. Business continued as usual, but the weight of what they had done lingered in the room, and Anita felt none of it, because she had already moved forward. Later, as they stepped out into the night, the air felt lighter. Not because everything was solved, but because something had been decided. Kim glanced at her. This is different from before. She nodded. It is. No ruse. No pressure. He looked ahead briefly, then back at her. Just choice. She smiled softly. Yeah. They walked side by side, their steps unhurried. No promises of perfection. No guarantees of ease. Just a quiet agreement. To try. To stay connected. To not let something real slip away again. And this time, that was enough. If you made it to the end, don't leave without hitting the subscribe button. It motivates us and helps us create more amazing stories just for you. Thanks for watching, and God bless.